begin, can you say at first a couple of words about you? Like, who are you?
Okay.
And then we'll go to enlightenment.
Okay, I'm Brant, and I'm a professor of psychology here at the California Institute of Integral Studies. I teach in the Integral Counseling and Psychology program, and I'm a psychologist in private practice here in San Francisco. So I guess the question is, what is
enlightenment from your point of view?
From my perspective? Well, I come from the perspective of integral yoga. I've been influenced by Aurobiindo's teachings around this. So I think of enlightenment as one part or stage in the process of spiritual unfolding. Seeing that our divine nature has two parts, a personal and an impersonal part, a personal soul and an impersonal Buddha nature or Atman. And so I think of enlightenment as the realization of the impersonal dimension of Atman or Buddha nature, not temporary, but a permanent realization that sees through and deconstructs this ego structure and changes the identification from this ego or self structure to this deeper ground of being, of Atman or Buddha nature. And in Integral Yoga, that's seen as half of our spiritual identity, the other half being the soul behind the heart, and that the opening of the soul is the other dimension of spiritual realization that connects us to the personal divine. And that when both of those then occur, there can be at a further stage of realization, which is bringing down higher and higher stages of this divine consciousness.
So enlightenment is not ultimate states of
It's
enlightenment.
not an ultimate stage in this perspective, in this view.
Okay.
It's one part of you can stop there. You can, with enlightenment, merge back into the oneness and have it, so it can be an ultimate getting off point. But it can also be half of this more total realization, and then can set the stage for higher and higher realizations of what Aurobindo calls, first of all, the higher mind, which is where this enlightenment happens, and then this mind of light, where cognition is no longer by thought, but by light, and then an intuitive mind, an overmind, and finally what he calls the supermental, which is this pure truth consciousness coming down into the body. And so I think of enlightenment as one step in this process. I no longer think of it as the end, but it can be the end. It can be a final resting point and a final jumping off point if you choose not to participate in this evolutionary unfolding.
So it depends of a human being. Will it be final or not?
Yeah. And that there can be a lot beyond it. Yes.
And what is the ultimate in all meanings?
What is the ultimate?
Yeah.
That seems to be unclear. It may be that there is no final, ultimate resting point here. That there may be a level of development that is infinite, that can just keep on going. But that certainly there is a much more advanced stage where it's not just the realization of the impersonal, but the realization of this very personal soul as well. And the coming down of these higher spiritual energies to transform the body into a body of light.
And personal development is also moves to enlightenment, or is it kind of independent development?
It seems like that also would ultimately go there, at least in this vision of things, that as the soul awakens, there's an increasing sense of union with the divine, and as it comes forward, initially the soul is very far back. Our experience of it is very deep inside. but then it begins to slowly come forward. It may be over lifetimes that it comes forward more and more. When it comes fully forward, then the soul realizes its oneness with the Buddha nature, with Atman. But that seems like is also pretty rare, where it comes all the way forward like that. Usually it's more a sense of union. And again, in integral yoga, people are suggested that people not just stop at one realization or the other, but they go for both.
And when soul comes out and meet Atman, this is enlightenment.
Yes.
When
yes,
it
yes.
means
When the soul realizes its identity with Atman.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And it's still not ultimate. There are some other stages.
That's right. That's right. But there are different statuses of this higher self or Atman self. There are different statuses of the divine consciousness that are increasing in their amplitude, in their vibration. And so the first level of it is enlightenment, but then there's an enlarging of that, or a kind of infiltration of these more illumined higher vibrations into consciousness and into the body.
And why are you in all this?
I'm at the very bottom.
How could it be? Yeah, for so long.
Struggling in the dark with glimpses of light here and there.
Integral yogis, aren't you? And where was Sri Aurobindo?
I think Sri Aurobindo devoted his life to bringing down the supermind, but never succeeded in fully doing that into the body, into the physical. How far he brought it down into his inner being, or how far he brought it down into these other higher dimensions of consciousness, that isn't clear. He didn't speak very definitively about that. So it's not entirely. He clearly had the realization of both the soul and the enlightened Atman. He clearly had those two, and was talked about reaching this the level before the supermind, the level of the overmind, and bringing that into the body. But this further stage, it seemed like that was a work in progress for him.
Do you have a criteria of these stages? Like, can you, for example, find out where am I on this stage?
I think it would be more self-diagnosis. I think it's hard to tell from the outside, although we do make judgments like that. So, it's like, what is your experience internally of your consciousness?
Right, but I can mistake, and I can also have an ego.
That's right. There are lots of people who say they're enlightened,
Yeah.
who look like they are deluding themselves.
Right.
That's right. And so exercising our discernment is really important, because there's a lot of deception and self-deception in the spiritual world.
Right. So do you have a kind of, maybe Sri Aurobindo or somebody else, like criteria which could be applied to somebody from outside, which make more objectively understanding?
Well, in terms of enlightenment, is there an ego structure in place that the person identifies with? There's lots of people who talk about living in a non-dual consciousness, but seem to be doing so from an enlarged ego structure rather than from a place where there is that structure has been really completely dissolved, deconstructed. A sense of a separate self or not. That seems like one clear criteria for enlightenment. That's right. Like, there's still ego functions, like the ego functions are like memory, being able to navigate in time and space. The ego functions remain, but the source of identity, of the self-image, of an ego being a separate self, that structure, in my understanding, dissolves in enlightenment.
Like, for example, if you're enlightened, you will identify yourself as you and me all together.
It's an interesting question. My answer is strictly theoretical here.
Okay.
But from the reports that I read of like Krishnamurti or like from other beings who seem illumined, it seems like there is still a center of experiencing which occurs within this body, but yet there is no longer an exclusive identification with this body, but there's a vast consciousness that encompasses and includes the world and the divine, and is not different from the world and the divine. That is their identity. Even though there's a locus of experiencing that occurs within the body.
And you do not have such an experience? Really?
Well, the experience is one thing, but the experiences come and go. Experience is fleeting. I wish I could say it was stabilized in me, but it's not. So no. Aurobindo differentiates between experience and realization and transformation. Experiences come and go. They prepare our consciousness. Realization is when it's a permanent state. I am that. And then transformation is when these higher energies come down and actually change the cells of the body, change the body itself.
So do you think the enlightenment will be possible, is possible for you in this life?
I have no idea.
Why,
It's possible. Of course
don't
it's possible.
mention you.
Of course it's possible. Yeah, of course it's possible. But to be honest, I don't think about it much anymore. For years, I was very concerned about it. I thought, boy, I really want to get there. At this point, it just seems to me like it's one stage among many stages. And so I don't think about it so much anymore.